I want to thank you, first of all, for taking this time for you. You know, a lot of times we start to think about when we take these moments of self-care that it can be selfish, when the reality and all the scientific proof is that it is not a selfish act. When we are full and whole ourselves, that means that we can care for each other in a more meaningful and complete ways. So I'm going to kind of go through this presentation. It's an experiential presentation, so we'll be doing some exercises together. I would ask you to limit interruptions. So if you could mute your phone or just put any distractions to the side so that you can be fully present for this. As Jen said, my name is Terry Smitchen, and I am a mindfulness-based stress reduction instructor, and I'm honored to be with you today. So we're going to start by having you look at this slide here. And in the chat box, if you could let me know what it is that you see on the screen. And Jen, as the results start coming in, if you could just read those aloud. While we're waiting, we'll just take a moment to just kind of find our breath. Breathing in and out. So Jen, do we have any responses in the chat box yet?
We do. Just a second, they're pulling up.
Sure.
So we have purple bird, bird, the top of a heart, 2 half bumps, bird, another bird, an expressive letter V.
Interesting. Interesting. Thank you for that. Well, mindfulness is going to give us a different way to look at this, because I invite you to consider that this is a sky with a bird. So mindfulness is really about seeing the sky and the bird with an equal amount of attention and no desire to change either one. If we skillfully apply this principle of mindfulness to difficult emotions, it means that we can observe and be open to the fullness of those emotions, whether that be heartache or love or fear or even anger, gratitude, whatever that emotion is, whatever shows up for us. So let's take a moment to explore what is mindfulness. Well, the definition is really paying attention to our lives moment by moment on purpose in a certain way, and most importantly, without judgment. I think we can all agree that we tend to be our own worst critics. In mindfulness, we're able to take a step back from that role. This definition of mindfulness was identified by Jon Kabat-Zinn, and although mindfulness and the art of that has been present for millennia, he really brought it into modern day practice. Another way to think of mindfulness is really about the art of using your senses to be fully awake in the present moment. Now, for you of those that might be on the call who might be experiencing grief or sadness or guilt, whatever those really difficult emotions are, it may seem counterintuitive to utilize mindfulness to help with those emotions. But let's take a deeper dive to find out how this can help us. So some of the principles of mindfulness-based stress reduction is that each experience is a challenge or an adventure. So if you can recall thinking back in your lifetime, something that you did for the very first time, you were in awe likely, or wonder, or think of a young child for the first time touching snow or a puppy jumping into a snowbank, remembering just that awe and excitement. It's about making each moment count by bringing you into awareness. It seems these days that we're pulled in so many different directions that, there's many challenges that it's difficult to just do one task at a time. We've come into the expectation that everybody is multitasking. So in this way, in mindfulness, it helps us get away from that stressful component of feeling pulled in all these different directions to being able to just focus on one moment at a time with intention. But it also allows us to put space between the stimuli and our reaction. And we're going to talk more about that. So I'm going to ask you again to participate by entering into the chat box. Looking at this graphic, let me know which one of these represents how you feel your mind is. Is it mindful or is it mindful? So if you could take just a moment to enter that in. And again, while we're waiting, just take a moment to find our breath. Notice the air moving in and out. Just having that awareness.
Terry, as most of these are coming in, most of them are saying mindful, F-U-L-L.
Okay, very good. And I think that that's not surprising. So that is because we have so many tasks that we're working on, so many requirements. Our lives are very, very full. But how do we take a moment to kind of empty our mind? Right now, we're going to do what's called a clearing exercise. So again, this is experiential. So I'm going to invite you to just take a moment to get comfortable in your chair, or if you're standing, just get comfortable in your position. This exercise is experiential. I'll be asking you a series of questions to guide you through the exercise, but you're not expected to answer. And I really ask that you kind of just try so hard to steep into the moment, to just really be in the moment and give yourself this gift of this experience. So we're going to begin with a posture that is straight and alert, but comfortable. And if you're comfortable and it feels safe to do so, just gently let your eyes soften and even close if you feel comfortable with that. Now we're going to rest in the moment, bringing awareness to our body. The breath moving in through our nose and out gently through our mouth. As you continue to breathe, just note where you feel the breath in your body. Where do you feel it coming and going? And as you notice that, allow yourself not to try to change your breath, but just notice the uniqueness of each breath. Are they of even lengths? Is one shorter or longer? How quickly or slowly do they move? Does this pattern change? Now I invite you to expand your awareness to the sound. What sounds do you hear around you? Are they pleasant? And just focus on the sounds. And as you feel your awareness expand, notice any thoughts that you might be having. Don't engage with the thought, but just notice their presence. And just imagine your thoughts as a cloud gently floating higher and higher with each breath. Imagine with every out breath, the distance increases between you and the thought. Consider the thought for what it is. Label it. Is it anxious or sad or happy? Notice where you feel it in your body. Again, don't engage the individual thought, but just try to observe it and get curious about it. Again, noticing your breath moving in and out. Notice that your thoughts are fewer and farther between. Imagine that space growing and expanding as you breathe in and breathe out. Again, feeling that expanse of awareness. Reconnecting and focusing on your breath, feeling it come in and gently seeping out through your mouth. And now I invite you to return to this space. You can wiggle your fingers and your toes when you're comfortable, and you can open your eyes. So I'd like you to take a moment and again, enter into the chat box anything that you notice that is different than before we did this exercise. And as you're thinking about your answer, remember if you felt an expansiveness, a distance of your thoughts. Did you feel the feelings or emotions in a particular place in your body? Let's take a moment to bring that experience to mind. And Jennifer, when you're ready, if you could share what some of the comments are in the chat box.
Sure. So we have breathing is slowed down. Not as much squirrel brain thinking of things to do later. My mind is full. When I opened my eyes, everything looked fresh and felt more aware. Quiet, calmer, sleepy, more aware of sounds, and I had a hard time relaxing. Calmer, less anxious, peaceful.
Beautiful. And I think that, when we think about mindfulness in non-judgmental, the person who indicated in there that they're not able to kind of clear their mind or their thoughts, that's okay. It's just the awareness that your thoughts are there. So let's take a dive a little bit deeper into mindfulness-based stress reduction and why it was developed. It was a mechanism for managing the negative effects of stress, for grounding in the experience of life. So many times we rush through our day and we don't recall some of the very rich experiences that we have had throughout the day. It assists with emotion regulation, and that's really where we're focusing on today. And it teaches us that we're not the whole of our thoughts. Too often we fall into what psychiatrist and a teacher Tara Brach often calls the trance of unworthiness, where our thoughts kind of take over and gives us a false identity. It fills us with guilt, with shame, with the should haves, the could haves, that we're not enough. Mindfulness-based stress reduction really helps us break free of that trance. So let's talk about the body's reaction to stress. So here we have the little fainting goat. So many of you likely have heard of the fight, flight, or flee. There's also freeze, in which case these fainting goats do. And when we encounter a stressor, our brain and body respond by triggering a series of chemical reactions that prepare us to run or engage with the stressor. We release adrenaline, which prepares our muscles for exertion, and cortisol, which regulates our body functions. If a stressor is particularly frightening, it might even cause us to freeze, just like this fainting goat. The stress response triggered by these two hormones causes our blood pressure to rise, our heart rate to increase, and our digestive system to slow down, and our blood to clot more quickly. But why are our bodies designed this way? Well, thousands of years ago, when our ancestors who encountered a saber-toothed tiger or other predator would more likely survive if they were able to spring up and flee the area. And if they could not, the increase in blood pressure and heart rate and a slowdown of the digestive system meant that we were able to produce more energy, and the odds of us, because of the clotting of the blood, the odds of us surviving a wound from the hungry tiger is much better. But my chances of asking anyone on this call here, I don't imagine that anyone's had to outrun a saber-toothed tiger. But what happens is when these hormones are released in our body and they don't get burned off through exertion, they can be damaging to our health. But in our modern day, let's think about the perceived threat. I'm gonna think that maybe it was likely caused by thoughts about the future or thoughts about the past, distressing thoughts that caused your body to perceive that there was a threat and in turn release a cascade of emotions and chemicals and hormones. So let's look at the symptoms of stress on your body. Common things such as headache, chest pain, fatigue, stomach upset, difficulty sleeping at night. It results in restlessness, mood, feeling overwhelmed, sadness or depression. And on our behavior, it could mean that we are more prone to angry outbursts, that we're social withdrawing, that we're exercising or taking care of ourselves less often. So how does that express in your body? Just take a moment in the chat box. When you feel stress, how does that present in your body? How do you know that you are feeling stressed? So if you just take a quick moment to enter in one or two sensations, or symptoms. Jennifer, if you have a moment, if you could just share with us some of the responses in there.
Sure. Anxiety, changes in breathing, sleep problems, heat and panic feeling within my body, jaw tightness and shallow breathing, can't sleep well, stomach hurts, trouble eating, irritability, close to tears, anxiety, overwhelming. I eat more and often and not always nutritious. Lack of motivation and focus, fatigue, tightness in chest, headache, and trouble focusing.
So for each of us, there are differences in the way it presents and there are similarities. But what's most important is that you're in tune with how stress presents in your own body. So I'm going to give you a pneumatic that you can use when you start to recognize that, whether that be your racing heart rate, or you feel that tension in your neck and your shoulders, you notice yourself getting very irritable for no reason. We're going to give you the acronym. It's called STOP. So as soon as you start to feel those sensations, you're going to stop what you're doing. You're going to turn towards your breath. You're going to take a deep breath in through your nose and release through your mouth. You're going to observe how you're feeling. Now, your observation might be, I'm irritable. I have a headache. I don't feel well. I'm exhausted. That's okay. Just making the observation, putting those labels on what it is that you feel. And then you're going to proceed with what you're doing. This exercise might take 5 to 10 seconds. But what it does is it stops your automated response system. So how can mindfulness help with difficult emotions? Well, it doesn't take away the overwhelming emotions, but it helps us respond to them differently. So rather than being swept away or trying to avoid the feelings associated with difficult emotions, mindfulness helps people to become aware of what they were feeling so that they can respond rather than react to those feelings. So we're going to do another experiential exercise here. And I'm going to invite you to just kind of settle into your seat. And I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey. We're going to start by having you soften your eyes, if that feels comfortable and safe to you. And better yet, if you can close your eyes. Now, I'd like you to recall a time that you have felt the negative effects of stress. You just identified in the chat what those experiences are, how that presents in your body. I want you to think of the trigger for that stress and just sit with it for a moment. You might notice some emotions rising up, such as anger, sadness. You might notice some sensation, your stomach churning, your muscles tightening, your jaw clenching. Just sit with that for a moment. And now we're going to teach you a breath counting practice for these times when you feel this stress building. We're going to recognize that there's a physical motion with each breath. We're going to tune into the sensation of breathing, not because we're trying to do anything with our breath, but because it's always there. It's our anchor for your awareness. Your thoughts are going to continue, and that's okay. But each time that you become aware of your distraction, you're going to return to your breath and back to the next breath. Breathing in, breathing out. So we're going to start with our breath counting to 7. So we're going to start with breathing in 1, breathing out 1, breathing in 2, and out 2. Breathing in 3, and out 3. Breathing in 4, and out 4. Now I invite you to find your own rhythm. Again, just counting your breaths in and out. Let go of any sense of trying to make yourself feel any different than you do. Just breathing in and out. And when you're ready, just open your eyes and return to this moment. So as we talk about expanding awareness and why mindfulness-based stress reduction can be so helpful to us, it's important to know that we developed our go-to stress response at about age 5. Now, some of that response lessens over time, but some intensify. And these responses have become automated, which means that it happens many times without our conscious awareness. The response becomes a pattern in our neural pathways. So as in the gorge here, we want to think of our neural pathways like the water that carved out this deep gorge. The deeper and the stronger these connections are, the more it means that we're reacting to a stressful situation without much or any conscious awareness. Think about a time that you were in traffic and somebody cut you off, and the only thing that brought you back to the moment was the sound of your own yelling. That's because we had a stress response to respond to the situation without a conscious awareness. Mindfulness can actually help us develop new pathways so that we can alter our responses. So there's a thing called neuroplasticity. With increased interactions, it means a stronger connection. It's a physical structure that becomes rewired. Our brain learns and adapts on a molecular level. Now, I'm sure that we've all heard the adage, you can't teach a dog new tricks, but the truth is you can. We generate up to about 6,000 new neurons a day. Studies have shown that when we use mindfulness, we are in effect changing the shape of our brain by flexing the muscles of our attention. So just like you go to the gym and you work out, you change the structure of your muscles. When we have intentional mindfulness, attentional awareness, we are doing the same thing. Neuroplasticity is also known as brain plasticity. It refers to the changes in the neural pathway and synapses, which are due to changes in behavior, environment, and neural processes. Neuroplasticity has replaced the formerly held position that the brain is a static organ and explores how and which ways the brain can actually change throughout life. It occurs on a variety of levels, ranging from cellular changes due to learning to large-scale changes involved in cortical remapping in response to injury. So the more two neurons are active, the stronger the connection of them are. So think about that gorge, that water going back and forth. You want to develop new habits, new neural pathways. You can do that. The more you do it, the deeper the connection. With every experience, your brain rewires its physical structure. It learns and adapts and molecularly restructures on the basis of thoughts and emotional experience. Let's review that. Thoughts and emotional experience will restructure our mind. So if our mind is full of negative thoughts, then how do you think that our brain is going to be changing? We're going to have a bias toward looking, a filter that we're going to see through, looking for the negative. So mindfulness is very helpful because it starts to help us distance from our emotion. We focus on the process and not the content. It teaches us to be curious, to ground our experience in the body. Remember, our breath is that anchor. We cultivate an observer's point of view. So we kind of separate ourselves. In the very beginning, we talked about getting that awareness, that separation between our thought and how close it is to us. So having an observer's point of view is just kind of looking from the outside in. And that allows us to be more curious about what is happening. It also allows us to quiet our inner critic. So when we think about self-compassion, we think about the golden rule. You know, we want everybody to treat us as we would like to be treated. We would prefer to have an ally with us instead of an enemy. And as we started out talking about self-compassion, it is not selfish at all. So after we learn to quiet that inner critic, it's time to learn how to give self-compassion to ourselves. We're great at giving it to others, but not so much for ourselves. And the basis of self-compassion begins treating yourself as you would your best friend. Think of those deep heart connections and that warm compassion, and turn that response inward. Sometimes we go inward to face our thoughts, and it can feel as though we're going to war with our enemy. But instead of being your own worst enemy, what if you became a trusted ally? Giving compassion to ourselves actually enables us to give more to others in our relationships. Research shows that self-compassionate people tend to be more caring and supportive in relationships and are more likely to compromise in conflicts and moving forward towards others. So we're going to do one additional exercise. This is called the heart anchoring technique. And as we started to talk and observe how difficult emotions rise up within our body, when you've decided that you want to go inward and you want to meet those emotions head on, this is a very helpful technique. We're going to learn to befriend those strong emotions. Remember, the goal is not to push them down, not to distract from them. Think about a beach ball, and when you try to push it under the water, and imagine pushing it and holding, sooner or later it's going to pop up with more force and more energy and more impact than it had before you ever tried to hold it under the water. Instead, consider holding this ball of emotion eye level and become curious about what it has to tell you. This anchoring heart technique will help you do just that. This technique was developed by Opus Peace, and as an ambassador of that program, I'm happy to teach it to you. It will help you find your brave space by retraining your nervous system to allow emotional pain and peace to sit side by side without fear. The effectiveness of the heart anchoring heart technique starts with a decision to change your relationship with uncomfortable feelings. It requires courage to connect with all parts of yourself, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. Making the decision to reckon with your feelings, separating you from you, giving that distance will decrease that fear of emotions that you might try to numb out, and will help you build a tolerance for discomfort, even 1 minute at a time. So many of you probably are already unconsciously using this technique. Think of a time when you received shocking news. Maybe your first reaction was to bring your hands to your heart, your hand to your heart. This innate knowledge is within us, and it helps us ground us in a time of distress. We're going to just bring it to the forefront of our minds. This technique can be done either sitting or standing. So I invite you to just be comfortable in the moment. We're going to start by taking a deep breath in through our nose and out, letting it release slowly. We're going to allow our eyes to soften and even close if that feels comfortable for you. Next, we're going to ask you to anchor your hand or hands firmly and tenderly on your heart and take a deep breath in. Now slowly release your breath, letting it ease from your lungs. Or bring your awareness to the weight of your hands on your heart. Notice any warmth or physical sensation that you might be feeling. Any tingling, any coolness of your hands. Next, find your brave space and feel what you're not wanting to feel, even if you can stand it only for a few seconds. Allow that barrier that you've kept in place to slowly lower and become face to face with the emotion or feelings that are uncomfortable for you. Continue breathing in and out. In and out. Now become curious about the place inside of you that's strong enough to hold your pain without fear. Get to know this brave space, your ally in battle. Continue breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. When you feel comfortable, you can slowly open your eyes to return to this space, honoring your own bravery for coming face to face with your most difficult emotions. So I want to thank you all for participating, and know that this heart anchoring technique, along with the 7 breaths, the stop mnemonic, and the clearing space, are all techniques that you can easily incorporate into your everyday. The more you practice them, the stronger those neural pathways are going to get, and the braver you will become. So thank you. It's been my honor to take you on this journey. Thank you.
Terry, thank you so much. What an excellent program, and makes us all stop and just think and be present in the moment. So we appreciate you very much for not only sharing your expertise, but also reminding us to stop and listen and look around. At this time, Terry has graciously given us a few moments of her time to answer any questions, ask any distinct impressions that you may have, or concerns or thoughts. Terry, I can tell you that in chat, there is a lot of appreciation for you, for your presentation, for your professionalism in sharing that information with us. I also see one question, and I will share it, and then feel free, folks, to unmute yourself and ask Terry directly, or you can continue to ask them in the chat and I will relay them to Terry to share an answer with us.
Sure.
But Terry, one of the questions that we have is, how do I get started? Is there something formal I need to do? You have a wonderful presence of yourself and how you present, but I don't know where to start.
Well, the easiest thing to do is if you start to Google mindfulness on the internet, there are so many YouTube videos, there's Minute Mindfulness. And just remember, this is not difficult. It can seem overwhelming, but it's just about the practice of bringing yourself right into the present moment. And the easiest way to do that is through the vehicle of your breath.
Thank you. All right, several other questions are coming in the chat. Terry, one person is asking, could you comment, or do you have any experience with Eric Tolle, T-O-L-L-E, and his mindfulness work?
The name is familiar, but he's not somebody that I have trained with.
Someone else would like you, could you go back and review the STOP meaning again?
Sure. So it means stop. So the first time that you start to feel those sensations of stress build in your body, you just stop what you're doing. You turn to your breath. The T is for the turning to your breath. Feel the air coming in and out. The O is to observe how you're feeling. And just be honest with yourself. You're not trying to change anything. You're just noticing, how are you feeling? And then the P is to proceed with what you're doing. That mnemonic, that exercise helps stop the connection between your automated response and whatever that stimuli is that puts you into that stressor position.
Excellent. Thank you, Terry. We have an individual, and I'm going to say your name because I want to make sure that I am relaying the correct information to Terry about your question. And Vicki, you asked, if you're still on with us, please unmute and add to my question here, but you asked about heart anchoring. And you mentioned you wanted to know if Terry had mentioned grace space. Did I ask your question correctly, Vicki?
Yes, you did.
Well, when we think about mindfulness, I don't believe that I specifically mentioned grace or having that space within, but there is a great deal of grace in mindfulness, and it's grace giving to yourself, giving yourself the grace to be fearful, to be angry, to just acknowledge what your emotions are, and then to provide that compassion and grace to yourself as you go through this process of really exploring how your body, how your mind, how you react to those strong emotions. And the heart anchoring technique is actually through an organization. It started its development for veterans with PTSD. And the organization is called Opus Peace, O-P-U-S, Peace. And that was founded by Deborah Grassman, and she and 5 other nurses who worked at the VA and journeyed with more than 100,000 veterans through their end of life, developed this program, again, specifically for veterans, but then expanded it out to recognize that we all have difficult emotions that we're dealing with, and what are some techniques that we can start to come face to face with those.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
one comment here. I'll think I'll answer it, but then I'll let, of course, Terry jump on. Someone asked if mindfulness messages can be sent out on a daily basis. And Terry, I'll let you answer it as well, but I want everyone to know that in addition to Terry being an expert and a practitioner of mindfulness, she also holds several hats and wears several hats here at Angela Hospice. So her day is incredibly full. However, she may have some insight on where she gets a daily reflection or a daily reminder. But Terry, I'll let you answer that. But the question is, could mindfulness messages be sent out on a daily basis?
Well, what I would encourage you to do is if you look for in your app store, whether that be on Android or Apple Store, there are many mindfulness applications there, and they have daily mindfulness reminders. You might be doing something, you might be in the midst of something, and it'll pop up on your phone to say, can you feel your toes? And that's a reminder to just get you out of your thoughts and into your body, just to anchor, just those quick ones. So many of them are free, some of them are subscription based, but they're very helpful techniques to just remind us on a daily basis, or sometimes even multiple times throughout the day, to be mindful.
Excellent. Thank you for that insight, Terry. The other question that we have is, can you explain how the parasympathetic system works?
Yes, so the parasympathetic system is, it's really our soothing system. So when we become stressed, our parasympathetic system is the one that puts out oxytocin. Just think of the last time you held a baby or a puppy. There's actual hormones or chemicals that are released in that. By doing some of these exercises, you can actually induce that or awaken that state within yourself.
Excellent. Again, thank you, Terry. Are there any other questions? Again, feel free to unmute yourself, ask Terry directly. We just have a few more minutes here with us this afternoon, and I want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to answer any, or excuse me, ask any questions, share any information that you'd like to. And then I'll give you back the rest of your afternoon, but this is an opportunity to ask Terry directly any questions. Just unmute yourself and ask away.
Terry, I have a question about the complementation of mindfulness work and living in the present. Are they the same? Are they the same, or are they complementary?
The principles are very much the same. So Eckhart Tolle is really one of the authors that has really brought us into greater awareness about being in the present moment, being in the now, where his techniques are mostly kind of thought driven to remind us to do this. Mindfulness is really uses very strongly the anchor, the physical anchor of the breath, to remind us to be present in the body, in our physical body. And then having that physical sensation is actually what can help take us out of our thoughts.
Thank you very much.
They definitely do complement each other, for sure.
Thank you.
Terry, I have a question about grief.
Sure.
I lost my husband in 2017, unexpectedly. And just lately, I lost my uncle the first week of January. And so I know that brings up a lot of anxiety and the stomach upset and, unable to focus. And so do you feel that when you're in those, and it also brings up the fear of death for me.
Sure.
So does that mindfulness help with bringing that focus back to, I'm okay today?
It truly does. Mindfulness is really shown to be through a number of scientific studies with focus groups that were going through deep grief, to be very helpful in just for the moment of when we're in that deep emotion, we're thinking about the circumstance we're in, the circumstance of losing our loved one. And again, that's all based in those thoughts, and the thoughts are actually what's creating those emotions and those physical sensations in our body. Being able to take that moment to become mindful, to become present in our body, takes us out of those thoughts, and it stops that automated response. We might have a very similar pattern of, we start with one thought, and next thing you know, we're taken into the whole loop of what our grief experience has been from the time that we were either notified of the death, or the time that we were there to witness the death. And we go through that whole spiral, and it's grief that gets stored in our body, and it needs to kind of come to the surface and be processed out. And the easiest and one of the safest ways that they've identified is through using mindfulness, and just kind of these bite-sized or these micro moments where you can kind of put those barriers down, or bring that ball up and just kind of face it for a moment. And you might say, I am feeling overwhelmed, I am feeling despair, but it's just recognizing and putting that label on that emotion that you're feeling helps start to give you that distance. I would strongly recommend, there are a number of programs for grief and mindfulness, and I would strongly recommend Googling that so that you can get some more information on that. And Annette, I'm so sorry for your losses.
Thank you. I want to tell you that I did go through the group sessions and the individual counseling at Angela Hospice, and they are amazing. The people are
Good.
so great. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thanks for that so much, reach out. And again, on behalf of Angela Hospice, and Terry said it very well, we are sorry for your loss at this time.
Thank you.
One last question, it looks like, Terry, we have, and it is specifically asking about mindfulness for children that have experienced some kind of trauma. Do you have any specific recommendations or exercises for this individual?
So there is a new program out from Berkeley, USC Berkeley, and it's actually a mindfulness program for teams, specifically for teams. It is it's a web-based program, and it's free. It's conducted by Dr. Lori Santos. So I definitely would recommend that. She does talk about difficult emotions and helping them process through that as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Terry. I'm sure everyone from the comments we're receiving and the questions that you received was very interested and involved in the conversation and the presentation. And on behalf of the entire Angela Hospice team, thank you, Terry, for sharing so much of your expertise and experience with us today. And thank you for joining us, folks, on our 2023 Angela Answers Kickoff. So thrilled to have you with us, and we look forward to having you with us on February 15th at 1 p.m., where we are going to have one of Angela Hospice's nurses on the presentation. And she's going to be here to answer anything that you'd like to know about what it takes and what it's like to be a hospice nurse. The nurse that we are presenting, doing the presentation with, has been with Angela Hospice and the hospice system for many years. This is not an opportunity for you to replace a doctor's visit or a nurse practitioner's visit. It's more of an answer, an opportunity for you to ask her what it's like. How did she get here? What is a daily occurrence that happens? What does a day look like in the life of a hospice nurse? So we invite you to join us on February 15th at 1 p.m. You can always find the schedule out on our website, which of course you know would be askforangela.com. All Angela Answers are from previous years, and this one will be posted in the next couple days, but all 2022 are posted within a link on the askforangela.com website, as well as the schedule of events for upcoming events that you can participate in, whether that's Angela Answers, whether that's a grief care support group that we have, whether that's one of our special events that are available throughout the year. We look forward to having you join us again in February 15th for Ask Me Anything by an Angela Hospice nurse, and wish you a wonderful Wednesday wherever you are. We hope the sun is shining and you're able to enjoy it with family and friends. We'll look forward to seeing you in February, folks. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you,
Thanks for
everyone.
joining.